They always said night shifts at Blackridge were the quiet ones. The inmates slept, the desert wind scraped against the razor wire, and the hum of the sodium lights made it sound like the whole place was plugged into hell. I worked that shift for 5 years. Long enough to stop jumping in noises, long enough to forget that this place was built over a grave. But I still kept my coffee scalding hot. Not for the caffeine, just for the comfort of holding something that felt alive. That night started like any other. Cameras flicking between tiers, Reed joking through the intercom about poker debts he'd never pay, the warden's office glowing faintly behind bulletproof glass. Voss never left before midnight. She said she couldn't sleep unless she heard the generators purr. At 23:07, Section C flickered. A second later, the monitors went red. The system labeled it Execution Wing, sealed area activated. I froze. That part of the prison had been closed for 14 years. Gas executions were banned long before I joined, and Blackridge's chamber was welded shut, its steel door painted with a federal seal and a line of scripture, something about mercy. But the camera feed came alive anyway. The light inside the chamber wasn't yellow or white. It was red, pulsing like a heartbeat under glass. Then a message scrolled across the central monitor. Execution cycle initiated, 29 names, mandatory compliance. The list rolled, one name at a time, like credits at the end of a bad movie. The first one hit me like a slap, Marcus Hale. Cell 19. The last one froze me solid. Ethan Calder, 72 hours. That was me. I remember standing up, knocking over the coffee, and hearing the porcelain shatter on the concrete. The smell of burnt grounds filled the control room. Reed's voice came through the speaker. Hey, Calder, you seeing this crap too? Yeah, I said. Kill the feed. Can't. It's running on internal. What do you mean internal? I mean the server thinks it's 1933. His voice cracked on the date. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then the PA system, dead since 2011, clicked on. A hiss. Then a voice, metallic, old, and formal. Prepare the condemned. I grabbed my flashlight and badge. Every instinct told me not to go down there, but you don't ignore a system breach in the death wing. Not in a place like this. The elevator to sub-level B groaned all the way down. The air smelled like rust and bleach. When the doors opened, a line of red bulbs led toward the chamber, each one blinking in slow sequence, drawing me deeper like a trail of warnings. At cell 19, Marcus Hale sat cross-legged on the floor. The light made his tattoos look like fresh cuts. Marcus, I said, you see the lights? He looked up, eyes glazed, pupils gone white. Yeah, he whispered. 10th time's the charm. What? This is the 9th time I've watched that door open. He smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. Every time I think I'm free, I wake up right here. And every time I walk into that room, I told him to back away from the bars, but he didn't move. He kept talking, voice shaking. You're new in the cycle, aren't you? I can tell by the way you still think it matters. He pointed toward the chamber at the end of the hall. The red light pulsed faster. Once it calls your name, you got 72 hours. Don't bother hiding. It'll find you. Always does. I unlocked the cell anyway. Maybe I was trying to prove him wrong. Maybe I just didn't want to watch a man lose his mind. The corridor vibrated with a low hum, like machinery waking up after a long sleep. The chamber door, a slab of steel 6 inches thick, slid open by itself. Inside, everything was spotless. The observation window gleamed, the restraints polished. The control console buzzed with life. On the wall, someone had carved a phrase in brass letters I'd never noticed before. Gulch Protocol, 1933. And beneath it, 7 lines of text. Rules, maybe. The 4th caught my eye. If transport of the body is refused, the nearest employee shall serve in its place. Marcus read it over my shoulder. Told you. They don't let anyone skip their turn. He stepped forward, slow, calm, like a man walking into church. Marcus stopped. He didn't. The door closed behind him with a soft pneumatic sigh. I hit the override switch. Nothing. The lights went dark, then a faint hiss filled the corridor. The viewing glass fogged from the inside. Shapes moved within, Marcus thrashing, the silhouette of restraints tightening. The timer on the console read 33:00 and began to count down. 33 minutes of gas. Except there was no gas canister connected, no external line, no hiss except the one coming from the walls themselves. Reed's voice crackled through my earpiece. Calder, what's happening? He's in the chamber. It's active. Impossible. The gas system's gutted. Tell that to the timer. At 0:33, the timer hit 0. The fog cleared. Marcus sat upright in the chair, head tilted back, eyes open. Then, as the chamber lights dimmed, his body folded in on itself. Not like flesh collapsing, but like paper burning without flame, crumbling to ash that never touched the floor. It just lifted, dissolved into the air, and was gone. The chamber repressurized with a sigh. The door opened. Empty. A new message blinked on the console. Cycle complete. Next in 24 hours. The red light faded. The corridor went still. I stood there until my knees gave out. When I finally looked at the monitor again, the list had changed. My name slid upward, 72 hours, 24 hours. I staggered back to the control room. Reed was waiting, pale as chalk. Where's Hale? Gone. Gone where? Vaporized. Like he never existed. He stared at me, then at the screen. That list, it's moving again. We both watched as names rearranged, one by one. Some flickered and vanished. Others appeared, freshly typed. At the top, the system stamped a new heading. Red list active. Behind us, a door clicked open. Warden Voss stepped in, wrapped in her gray coat, face hollow under the fluorescence. She looked at the monitor once and whispered, "God help us." It started again. I demanded answers, but she just handed me a small brass key and a faded envelope. The key tag read, Vault 7, Warden only. Everything you need to know, she said, is in there. And whatever you do, don't let the body stay. Before I could ask what that meant, she walked out. I opened the envelope in the silence that followed. Inside were two items, a photograph and a slip of yellowed paper. The photo showed the chamber back in 1933. Same door, same shape, but a group of men in minor uniforms standing beside it. At their feet lay another man in chains, eyes blank, mouth open. Someone had scrawled his name on the back, Jasper McCoy. The paper was worse. It was a copy of a federal memo dated 1933, signed by Judge Reginald Calder, my great-grandfather. It authorized emergency executions for containment purposes. The final line was underlined twice in red. In the event of recurrence, lineage will serve in restitution. That's when the lights cut again. All except one. In the corner monitor, the chamber glowed, bright red, alive. And under the timer, a new status blinked. Next execution, Ethan Calder, 24 hours. Vault 7. I didn't sleep that day. Couldn't. Even with the sun bleeding through the blinds of the staff quarters, the air still felt heavy, like the whole prison was holding its breath. Every camera feed I checked showed nothing. Cell 19 was empty. No record, no file, no Hale. His inmate number returned, invalid entry. Even the physical file had vanished from archives. It was like the system had exhaled him. When I showed Reed, he rubbed his eyes and said, "You sure you didn't dream this, man?" I didn't answer. I just slid the brass key across the table. The tag still read Vault 7, Warden only. Reed looked at it like it was a curse. That's down by the storage tunnels, right? Under admin. Yeah. You know what happened the last time someone opened that? No. He hesitated. They didn't come back. I pocketed the key. Then I'll bring a flashlight. The elevator to the sub-basement hadn't been used in years. I had to swipe my badge 3 times before it agreed to move. The doors opened into cold concrete. My breath hung in air. Vault 7 wasn't on any blueprint. You had to walk through a row of unused evidence lockers, then down a ramp slick with condensation. The air smelled like copper and ozone. When I found the door, it wasn't locked with a pad or code, just a circular keyhole, old as the building itself. The brass key slid in like it had been waiting. The lock turned. Something behind the door clicked twice. Then the hinges exhaled dust. Inside was a narrow corridor lined with glass tubes. Some were shattered, others fogged from the inside. Labels hung from corroded hooks, Protocol A6, residual subjects, thermal exchange. At the end stood a control console, analog, humming faintly, lights flickering like dying stars. A metal placard above it read, Blackridge Federal Gulch Protocol 1933/authorized personnel only. And beneath that, etched by hand, the same 7 rules I'd seen in the chamber. Except this time, Rule 5 was scratched over with something new. The list never ends. It just updates. I took a photo with my phone. The flash made the dust bloom. That's when I noticed the second door, smaller, unmarked, built into the wall behind a mesh screen. It had no handle, only a red handprint sensor. When I brushed the surface, the console beeped. Identity match, Calder lineage confirmed. Access granted. The door slid open half a foot and stopped, grinding against rust. Cold air poured out, carrying the faintest sound, not machinery, not wind, but whispering. Dozens of voices overlapping in a low chant, the same words on repeat. 33 minutes for mercy. I almost ran. Instead, I leaned in with the flashlight. The beam fell on a wall covered in photographs, mugshots of miners, convicts, wardens, all the way back to the 1930s. Every face had red chalk slashed across the eyes. At the center of the wall was a single photograph not aged by time, a man in a correctional officer uniform identical to mine, same badge number, same nameplate E. Calder. Except the date printed beneath it was 1968. Before I could think, the console behind me sputtered to life. A line of text scrolled across the ancient CRT display. Cycle 10 initiated. Next subject confirmed. Ethan Calder, 23 hours, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. The countdown began. I bolted. By the time I hit the elevator, my radio was screaming with static. Reed's voice cut through, frantic. Calder, where the hell are you? Warden's looking for you. Something's happening upstairs. The elevator climbed, painfully slow. When the doors opened, alarms were wailing. The whole block pulsed red again. Voss stood at the control room, oxygen tank slung over her shoulder, eyes glassy. You opened the vault, didn't you? She rasped. What the hell is this place? It's older than the prison, she said. Older than the state line. They built Blackridge to cap it, not to contain prisoners, but to contain that. She pointed at the floor. The mine below. Then why is it still running? Because you're still alive. She handed me a small leather notebook. Inside were sketches of tunnels, symbols carved in circles, coordinates. One page was labeled McCoy Incident, with a newspaper clipping glued beside it. The trial of Jasper McCoy, 1933, sentenced to death by gas in the first chamber of Crimson Gulch Mine. At the bottom of the page, written in Voss's handwriting, executed 33 minutes before sunrise. The cycle began. She leaned close. Every generation, someone with your name gets pulled in. That's how it feeds. Feeds on what? Regret, she said. And heat. That's why the bodies never stay cold. Before I could reply, the lights flickered again. Not from the alarm, but from below. The power meters spiked. Reed's voice came over the PA. Sub-level pressures climbing. We got movement under the execution chamber. We're in. By the time we reached the lower block, the concrete floor was sweating. The red light wasn't from bulbs anymore. It was seeping through cracks in the tile, glowing from beneath like magma veins. The chamber doors stood open. Inside, air shimmered like a mirage. The timer on the console had already started, 33:00. But there was no one strapped in the chair. The restraints were open, waiting. The intercom burst with static. Then that same old voice echoed. Prepare the condemned. Reed backed away. Screw this. I'm not doing another hail. I stepped forward. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost crawled across the glass. Then, faintly, I heard something behind the wall. A low grinding, like gears turning in rock. Look, Reed whispered, pointing at the far wall. The concrete was shifting. Lines of text carved themselves into the surface, one letter at a time, glowing red gold. Mine opens at 45. Reed turned to me. 45 what? Bodies, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. At 0:09 on the timer, the chamber lights cut again. The glow under the floor vanished. For a moment, there was silence. Then a single metallic click, like a lighter. Something crawled out of the drain grate in the center of the room, a tendril of smoke, thick and red. It rose, formed a vague shape, a face, or maybe several faces overlapping. A whisper slid across the room. Mercy denied. Reed ran. Couldn't move. The smoke coiled toward me, circling my feet. Every breath made my chest tighten, like was inhaling me instead. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The timer hit midnight. The smoke collapsed to the floor and vanished into the cracks. The screen on the console updated. Cycle halted. Manual override authorized. Vault 7 access required. That was when the notebook in my hand began to heat up. I flipped it open. One of the blank pages was burning from the inside out, ink bleeding up through the paper like veins. Words formed in the margins, written in my own handwriting, though I hadn't touched a pen. Find the tape. Before the next cycle. Jasper left it for you. I found Reed in the hallway outside, sitting against the wall, hands trembling. I'm done, he muttered. They can fire me. I'm not staying for another night. You think leaving helps? I said. Marcus tried that. He walked out the front gate 9 times. Reed looked up, eyes wide. 9 times. Yeah. He swallowed hard. What happens on the 10th? I didn't answer. When I got back to my quarters, the clock on the wall read 11:11 p.m. The same time the gas cycle had started the night before. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. A voice message. No ID, just static and a single line spoken in a soft southern drawl. Tell Reginald Calder his debt ain't paid. The mine's still hungry. The call timestamp was 1933. I stared at it until the phone shut off on its own. Outside, the siren lights finally died. The prison went still again. But in the reflection of my window, I could see the red light from the chamber flickering faintly in the distance, like a pulse trying to start again. And for the first time since I'd worn the badge, I understood what this place really was. Blackridge wasn't a prison. It was an engine. And tonight, it wanted to restart. The historian. By morning, Blackridge smelled like ozone and bleach again, like nothing had happened. But the red stains under the chamber glass hadn't washed out, no matter how long the janitors scrubbed. They said it was rust. I knew better. The warden didn't show up for roll call. Reed didn't come back to work. And me? I couldn't leave. Every time I got near the gate, the badge scanner flashed, access denied, cycle active. I wasn't a guard anymore. I was an inmate no one could see. By noon, I was sitting in the records office, surrounded by boxes that hadn't been touched since before the internet. The air was thick with paper rot. I was looking for a name, Jasper McCoy. All I found were fragments, execution logs that stopped mid-sentence, missing pages, signatures blacked out with ink thick enough to shine. I didn't hear her come in until she spoke. You're not supposed to be in here, a woman's voice said. Calm, low, southern drawl. She stood by the doorway, orange inmate jumpsuit rolled to her sleeves, hair braided tight. Her ID tag read, Pike, Nora, inmate number 41192. I'm looking for historical records, I said. She smiled faintly. So am I. Turned out she'd been a data archivist before she got 7 years for hacking the FBI's cold case server. Said she was just returning the truth to the public. Now she was working in records as part of her rehabilitation. Fitting, considering this place had buried truth for a century. When I told her what I'd seen in the gas room, she didn't laugh or look surprised. She just walked to a locked cabinet, pulled out a yellow folder, and tossed it on the table. Inside were black and white photos, men in mining helmets, their faces smeared with soot and fear. At the bottom, one name repeated, Crimson Gulch collapse, March 3rd, 1933. 45 dead. They never dug them out, Norris said. Company blamed methane buildup, but there's no record of gas pockets in that vein. And look here. She pointed at a smaller photo, grainy but clear enough. A courtroom, a man in shackles. Jasper McCoy. Convicted in 2 days, she said. Trial lasted 37 minutes. Judge, Reginald Calder, my great-grandfather. How did you know that? I asked. She smiled. I've been tracing surnames connected to the mine for a year. Every 50 to 60 years, somebody named Calder ends up here, either as a warden, a guard, or a federal contractor. Always when the system glitches. What system? She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a map of the prison's internal network. A cluster of nodes blinked red deep under the subbasement. That, she said, they call it Gulch AI. It was installed in '79 to automate death row processing, but the codebase was copied from something much older. The project tag is Protocol 1933. How does an AI from 1979 connect to a mining accident from 1933? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Every time someone dies in that chamber, the server logs temperature drops, not rises. It's pulling energy, not releasing it. Pulling it where? She looked at me for a long moment. Down. Before I could ask more, the overhead lights flickered. The monitors in the office snapped to black. Then a single line of red text appeared on Nora's laptop. User Calder authenticated. Begin interview. The air filled with a low hum. Speakers on the wall, long dead, crackled to life. A man's voice echoed. Old, sharp, deliberate. This is Judge Reginald Calder, 1933, recording deposition for protocol continuance. My stomach dropped. It was his voice. I'd heard it once in a family archive reel when I was a kid, before my mother burned the tape. The subject, Jasper McCoy, has refused confession. Execution to proceed per Gulch Directive 4. Should containment fail, successors of the Calder line will assume restitution duties. May God preserve order. Then static, followed by a woman's scream. The speakers popped and went dead. Nora and I sat in silence. The hum under the floor hadn't stopped. She looked at me, voice barely above a whisper. You realize what that means, right? It's not just haunting you, it's coded into the infrastructure. The words hit me like a blow. My family didn't just condemn Jasper. We built his prison into the bones of this place. The lights came back with a snap. Every monitor in the room showed the same feed, the gas chamber, red light glowing again. The timer, 33:00. My name was already displayed at the bottom of the list. Nora grabbed her folder and stuffed it into a satchel. If it's calling you again, we have maybe one cycle before it resets. I know someone who can help. Who? She hesitated. Kayla McCoy, Jasper's descendant. I stared. He had family, great-granddaughter in Atlanta, runs a true crime channel. She's been digging into the Crimson Gulch records for months. She's not going to believe any of this. She will, Nora said, because she found something the Bureau buried, a tape. The word made my blood run cold. The one he left for me. How do you, she started. Doesn't matter. I grabbed my coat. How do we reach her? Nora smirked. Already did. She's flying in tonight. We spent the next few hours in the control room, watching the feed. The warden still hadn't returned. Her office lights were off, but her oxygen tank was gone. At 7:12 p.m., a white SUV rolled through the gate, visitor clearance override. The woman who stepped out wore black jeans and a denim jacket, carrying a camera bag like she was ready to film a storm. Her hair was braided like Nora's, but her eyes, gray, sharp, and tired, looked straight through the guard glass. Kayla McCoy, she said, flashing an ID I knew was fake. Media liaison. Fad. I asked. She smiled. Federal Anomalies Division. Makes it sound official enough to get in. Inside the admin room, she laid out her equipment. Audio recorders, analog cameras, and an old-school cassette player. She popped the tape in, pressed play. Static. Then a man's breath. A rough, trembling voice spoke through the speakers. If you're hearing this, they never close the mine. Tell them I forgive none of it. The gas wasn't poison. It was air. They fed it my breath. Nora looked at me. It matches the 33-minute cycles. Kayla continued fast-forwarding. At the end of the tape, a final line is through. Reginald Calder owed blood. His blood is the key. Before she could stop the tape, the chamber feed flared bright again. The console began typing on its own. Blood verified. Calder present. Opening Channel G. The entire building shuddered. Somewhere deep below, a door I hadn't known existed was opening. Nora shouted over the noise. Channel G, that's the mine access. Kayla grabbed her camera. We have to see it. No, I said. We seal it. But the decision was already made. The system didn't care what we wanted. The floor beneath the execution wing split along its seams. A draft of hot air surged up, reeking of sulfur and old rain. Through the vents came a sound I'll never forget, a low human moan echoing like wind through caverns, layered hundreds deep. Kayla whispered, "Those are the 45. The power cut out completely." Emergency lights bled red across the hallway. The timer on the console restarted, 33:00. But this time, no name appeared. Only one message. Cycle transfer pending. Select host. Nora stared at me. "It's looking for someone new." "It's not getting one," I said. We ran. Past the infirmary, past admin, down into the generator tunnels. Every door we passed buzzed with static, as if something behind them was whispering our names. In the dark, Nora's flashlight hit a row of old plaques on the wall, names of previous wardens. Last one, Lena Voss, 2011, present. Except a new plate was bolted underneath, fresh metal, no date yet. Ethan Calder. When we finally reached the generator room, the turbines were still. But in the center of the floor sat Warden Voss's oxygen tank, tipped over empty. Next to it lay her badge. The metal surface shimmered faintly in the red light, like it was breathing. Nora picked it up, frowned. The tag still warm. The intercom above us clicked on. Voss's voice, distorted and faint. "If you're hearing this," I did what I had to. I let it take me instead. Then another voice layered over hers, lower, ancient, rough as gravel. "Mercy accepted." Cycle paused. The lights steadied. The hum under the floor eased. For the first time in 2 nights, silence held. Nora let out a shaky laugh. Did we stop it? Kayla looked at me pale. Or did it just skip a beat? That night, I sat alone in the watchtower overlooking dry wells. The neon from the old casino blinked red, white, red, like a warning pulse. On my phone, a new message waited. No number. Just coordinates, 20 miles east, out in the desert. Attached was a file name, McCoy Mine Entry, Vault Map. Below it, one sentence. "If you want it to end, bring the descendants home." I looked toward the horizon, where the sand shimmered like liquid fire under the moon. Somewhere out there, the mine was still breathing. The mine breathes. I didn't think the desert could feel alive until that night. It wasn't wind rolling through the sand. It was breath, moving slow and deliberate, rising from the cracks beneath the earth. By the time we reached the coordinates from the message, the sun was gone and the horizon burned dull red, like someone had buried a furnace under Nevada. Kayla drove, Nora navigated, and I stare at the black outline of Blackridge shrinking behind us. "Vault map says the shaft should be right here," Nora said, pointing to an empty stretch of sand. Kayla frowned. "Looks pretty close to me." The GPS blinked, recalculated, then froze. Every compass needle on our phone spun wild. The ground beneath the headlights shimmered, not dust, but glass, melted into veins that glowed faintly crimson. I stepped out. The air was heavy, dry, electric. In the center of that barren field stood a rusted elevator cage, half buried, cables stretching into the dark below. On its door, welded in flaking brass, were the words, "Crimson Gulch, Service Shaft A." "Jesus," Kayla whispered. "It's real." Nora ran her fingers over the metal. "Sealed since 1933. The temperature's still rising." I pulled a lever. The gears screamed but moved. Dust cascaded from the pulley beams as the platform shuddered and began to descend. No one spoke during the first 100 feet. Then the light from above shrank to a coin and vanished. Below us, the shaft walls pulsed with veins of red mineral, some kind of crystal that threw off its own dull light, enough to see by but not enough to comfort. Every few seconds the cage trembled as if the earth exhaled. At 320 feet, the platform stopped with a jolt. A corroded plaque hung crooked beside the landing gate. Execution Chamber 1, converted in 1933/Federal installation. Kayla raised her camera. We're still inside the prison perimeter. They built the death wing right over this. The tunnel ahead was lined with old electrical conduits and rusted warning signs. Thermal exchange zone, authorized personnel only, containment wing. Somewhere in the dark, water dripped in a slow, mechanical rhythm. We followed the sound. The deeper we walked, the colder it got, until every breath turned to fog. The tunnel ended at a steel door, barely hanging on its hinges. Beyond it lay a cavern so vast it swallowed the beam of our flashlights. Rows of wooden benches sat half-buried in dust. A judge's dais carved into the rock face loomed at the far end, cracked and blackened by fire. It wasn't a mine. It was a courtroom. Nora whispered, "The trial chamber. This is where they condemned Jasper." Kayla moved toward the bench, her camera light trembling. If he died here, maybe this is where the curse started. I wanted to tell her curses weren't real. Then the wind changed. A pressure built in my ears, the same feeling I got inside the gas chamber before the hiss began. The air itself thickened. Our lights dimmed one by one until only the crimson veins in the walls glowed. The benches filled with silhouettes, dozens of them. Men in minor clothes, heads bowed, hands folded. Ash instead of flesh, dust instead of eyes. Kayla gasped, backing into me. "Ethan." One of the figures lifted its head. His features were carved from stone, but his eyes burned white. "You brought the gavel back." The voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from the walls. Nora fumbled for the recorder. "Identify yourself." I was justice. I became dead. The bench cracked. A shape rose from the judge's seat, robes of stone, a face I recognized from the photograph in Vault 7. Reginald Calder. He looked at me through a century of dust. My blood stands again. The cycle continues. The miners' whispers grew louder, merging into one chant that rolled through the chamber like thunder. 33 minutes for mercy. 33 minutes for mercy. Kayla screamed as her recorder burst into flame. The heat poured from nowhere, licking the walls in long red tongues. The crystals began to melt, glowing brighter until the whole cavern throbbed with light. I dragged her toward the tunnel, shouting for Nora. She was still by the dais, staring at something embedded in the rock. A skeleton shackled to the floor, jaw open mid-scream. A brass tag hung from its wrist. Jasper McCoy. Nora reached for it. "We need proof." The moment her fingers brushed the bones, the chamber roared. Every crystal vein surged like a heartbeat. The miners vanished. The heat reversed into cold, so brutal it cut the air from my lungs. Ice spread over the skeleton, sealing it in an instant. And from beneath the ice, a voice deep, human, exhausted, spoke in my head. He lied. He killed them all. Free me, and I'll stop the mine. I staggered back, clutching my skull. The voice wasn't sound. It was vibration crawling behind my eyes. Kayla grabbed my arm. "What's he saying?" "Nothing, elite." The ground convulsed. Cracks split through the floor, glowing molten red. A sound like metal screaming echoed upward. Nora shouted, "We have to move." We ran half-blind through the tunnel as the courtroom collapsed behind us. The elevator shaft groaned, its cables snapping one by one. When we burst into the night, the cage followed, rising on a column of heat, flinging sparks like a volcano. It crashed into the sand beside us, burning red. Kayla dropped to her knees, sobbing. "It's awake." "You heard him, didn't you?" I didn't answer. The voice was still inside me, whispering slow. 33 minutes for mercy. One for truth. Behind us, the desert rippled. The sand sank a few inches, then a few more, forming a wide circle, an opening no one could see but all could feel. The mine was breathing again. We made it back to Blackridge before dawn. The prison looked different, quiet, too quiet. Not even the lights on the watchtower were blinking. Inside, everything smelled of wet stone and ozone. The chamber console was active, displaying a single line. Phase 2 complete. Jasper McCoy contained. New host identified, Kayla McCoy. She read it first. What the hell does that mean? Before I could answer, her nose started bleeding. The lights flickered. The timer reappeared. 33:00. Nora lunged for the power switch, but the breakers refused to move. The console locked itself. Transfer initiated. Kayla screamed, clutching her head. The skin around her wrists began to glow faintly red, like veins made of light. I held her shoulders. "Fight it. It's using you." She gasped, voice breaking. He said the dead isn't just yours, Ethan. It's mine too. Blood for blood. Her camera fell and shattered. The air grew dense, the the same invisible weight that always came before the gas hissed. Then Nora did something I'll never forget. She yanked the brass key from my belt, Vault 7, and shoved it into the manual lock on the console. "Breaking the line," she muttered. "If it can't trace lineage, it can't feed." She turned the key. The console screamed, high-pitched, electric. Sparks erupted from the walls. The timer froze at 0:33. Everything went still. Kayla collapsed in my arms, unconscious but breathing. The glow faded from her veins. Nora leaned against the wall, panting. Did it stop? The console flickered once more. A new message appeared, slow, deliberate. Cycle suspended. Manual review required. Court reconvenes at dawn. We carried Kayla to the infirmary. The prison doctor was gone, but we found oxygen tanks, blankets, adrenaline shots, enough to keep her stable. As the first light of morning touched the desert, I looked out the window toward dry wells. The neon sign from the casino flickered again, this time forming words in its glitching pattern. Gulch Court opens. I turned to Nora. We didn't stop it. We just delayed the verdict. She nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we hold court. That night, as I recorded this entry, I found something tucked inside the warden's old notebook. Another envelope, sealed with wax, stamped FAD, confidential. Inside, a single line written in federal type. Agent Vega, proceed to Blackridge. Confirm Calder's survival. Stage the tribunal. At the bottom, a timestamp I didn't recognize. 0:33 a.m. tomorrow. I don't know what's coming when the sun rises, but I can feel the mine beneath us waiting. And if this place really runs on blood, then Dawn's going to need a witness. The tribunal. When the sun came up, the desert looked wrong. Too still. The kind of still that makes the air feel like glass about to crack. The prison sirens had gone silent sometime after midnight, but the smell of ozone still clung to the halls. Every monitor in the control room blinked the same phrase, looping like a prayer I couldn't shut off. Court reconvenes at dawn. Nora was already awake when I found her. She'd drawn a crude map on the infirmary wall with a broken pen, the outline of Blackridge, the mine shafts underneath, the sealed corridor labeled Channel G. Kayla lay on the cot beside us, pale, her pulse shallow but steady. When the light hit her face, I saw the faint shimmer of red veins still hiding beneath her skin, like embers under ash. Nora didn't look up. Whatever happens next, she can't go down there again. She's part of it now, I said. She's the only McCoy left. That's why it wants her. We stood in silence, the hum beneath the floor faint but rising, like a slow building heartbeat. Then the intercom clicked on by itself. A voice I didn't recognize spoke, smooth, professional, with that federal cadence that makes everything sound routine. "This is Agent Vega. Calder, if you can hear me, the tribunal will proceed per Directive 17A. You're the key witness. Bring the descendants to the site." The transmission ended in static. Nora turned to me. "They're coming here, or they're already here." Outside, a black SUV rolled through the desert gate, unmarked, dust-coated, windows mirrored. Four figures stepped out, each wearing tactical gear with the FAD insignia stitched in red. Agent Vega was the last to emerge, tall, composed, wearing a white shirt that looked untouched by the world. He smiled like he was greeting a friend. "Officer Calder," he said, "you've done exceptionally well. You stopped the escalation phase." "Stopped?" I asked. "The mine's still moving. It's breathing under our feet." He nodded calmly. "Exactly. Which is why we finish this now." He opened a metal case and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. When he unrolled it, I saw an old gavel, cracked, blackened to the handle. The brass plate on its base read, "Property of Reginald Calder, 1933. My stomach dropped. "Where did you get that?" "Recovered from the McCoy site," Vegas said. "It's what the system recognizes as judicial authority. You're going to use it." Nora stepped between us. "You're sending him to his death." "On the contrary," Vegas said, ice cold. "We're giving him a chance to balance the equation." He motioned toward the open desert. "The court is ready." The mine entrance had widened overnight. The sand had sunk several feet, revealing a spiral of old concrete steps descending into crimson light. Kayla walked on her own, weak but determined. She carried the cassette recorder, the one that held Jasper's final words. The four agents followed behind, their flashlights cutting cones through the dust. Vega let us down until the air grew wet and metallic. At the bottom, the world opened into the same cavern we'd seen collapse the night before, but now it was whole again, pristine, as if rebuilt from memory. The benches were filled with shadows, the same miners, the same silent congregation. The judge's dais waited in the far corner, the black stone glowing faintly red. Vega gestured toward it. "Officer Calder, take the stand." I hesitated. The weight of the gavel felt heavier than steel. Every time I blinked, I saw my great-grandfather's face flicker in the dark stone above the dais. Kayla stood beside me. "If this thing wants justice," she said softly, "then let's give it truth." Nora set up the recorder on the podium. "For the record, this is Blackridge Federal Penitentiary, 10:03 a.m., Tribunal Red List Case Number 01. Vega nodded. "Proceed." I raised the gavel, and the sound it made when it struck the stone echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across metal. The shadows shifted. The miners looked up, and from the far side of the cavern, a voice boomed, deep, resonant, ancient. Court convened. Judge Calder presiding. A shape emerged from the wall, my ancestor's likeness carved in smoke and red light. His eyes were empty, his mouth a crack in the stone. Name the accused. My throat tightened. Jasper McCoy. The shadows whispered his name in unison, thousands of voices carrying the weight of a century. Kayla stepped forward, shaking but defiant. Jasper McCoy was innocent. He was murdered to protect a lie. The judge turned his hollow gaze to her. And yet his blood still stains the ground. She lifted the recorder and pressed play. Jasper's voice filled the cavern. Tired, human, defiant. They said the mine collapsed on its own. They lied. Drake Jr. set the charges to cover the bodies. Tell them I forgive none of it. The echoes bounced off the rock. The shadows stirred, restless. Nora stepped forward, holding the warden's notebook. "Your Honor, this book contains evidence from 1933, ledgers, falsified contracts, and court orders signed by Reginald Calder authorizing illegal executions." She placed it on the stone altar. The ink flared red, the paper smoking. The judge's voice lowered. "Forgery." "It's not," I said. "That's his handwriting." "Mine, too." He turned his gaze on me. "Then you accept responsibility." "Yes," I whispered. "For his sins and mine." The ground trembled. Cracks spread across the dais. The miners began to chant again, faster now, like a heartbeat racing toward collapse. 33 minutes for mercy. Kayla cried out. "You want mercy? You'll get it." She reached for the skeleton of Jasper McCoy, half buried at the base of the dais, and pressed her hand to its skull. The entire cavern erupted in light. The air shook. The judge's shadow froze mid-motion, his mouth open in silent rage. The miner's chant broke apart into cries, not pain, but release. And through the glare, Jasper McCoy stood, not stone, not smoke, but flesh made of molten ember. His eyes were calm, his voice almost gentle. "Ethan Calder." Couldn't breathe. "Yes. Do you understand what justice costs?" "No," I said, "but I'll pay it." He nodded. "Then the dead ends here." He turned to the judge's specter. "You condemn me to 33 minutes. I sentence you to eternity." He struck the ground with his own gavel of flame. The cavern split open, swallowing the stone figure whole. The benches crumbled, the miners dissolving into streaks of light that spiraled upward like ash caught in wind. Vega shouted orders into his radio, but the static drowned everything. The agents vanished into the collapsing tunnels one by one, screaming as the floor folded in on itself. Nora grabbed my arm. "We have to go." Kayla stayed where she was, staring at Jasper. "He's free now." Jasper looked at her, his outline flickering. "Not yet. One more name remains." He pointed at the chamber wall. The list was there again, glowing red through the stone. Names fading one by one until only two remained, Ethan Calder and Kayla McCoy. Then mine faded. I felt a weight lift off my chest, replaced by cold. The world tilted, sound bending. My vision blurred. Kayla screamed my name, but it came from far away. The last thing I saw before the light swallowed everything was Jasper, reaching toward her, his hand turning to dust as it touched her face. When I woke, I was lying on the floor of the control room. The monitors were dead. The gas chamber was dark. Nora sat beside me, blood on her forehead, eyes glassy with exhaustion. "You've been out for hours," she said. "Kayla." She shook her head. "Gone." The mind closed over itself. Nothing left. I tried to stand, but the world tilted again. On the desk, the gavel lay cold and cracked in two. The brass plate was gone. Outside, dawn was breaking over dry wells. For the first time since I'd arrived at Blackridge, there was no hum under the floor. No heat. No whisper. Just silence. Nora handed me a small folded note she said she found in my pocket. It wasn't in my handwriting. One debt paid. 44 remained. That evening, Vega returned alone. His suit was dusty, his smile faint. "Congratulations," officer called her. "The cycle is broken." I stared at him. "Then why are there still 44 names?" He didn't answer. He just adjusted his tie and looked toward the desert. "The division will be in touch. We'll need your expertise in Texas." He walked away before I could stop him. When I turned back to the monitor, it flickered once, just enough to show the execution room feed for heartbeat. The chamber was empty, the lights still off. But across the glass, faint and fading, someone had written in condensation, "See you in 33. The 17th Prison." 3 days after the tribunal, Blackridge went dark for good. The Fed said it was a containment shutdown, radiation fault in the lower geothermal units. They fenced off the valley and paved a new road that bypassed dry wells completely. To the public, the prison never existed. But I did. The Federal Anomalies Division flew me out at dawn, east across Nevada's bones, the horizon painted in rust and violet. I hadn't spoken since Kayla vanished. I still heard her voice sometimes, like tape static whispering under my heartbeat. Agent Vega sat across from me in the transport chopper, reading from a thin black folder. 17 facilities, he said finally, each with a similar substructure, each with a record of spontaneous energy events. "You broke the first loop, Calder. We think you can help us stop the rest." 17? I asked. "You said Blackridge was the only one." He smiled without looking up. "That's what you were supposed to believe." The helicopter banked south. Far below, the desert shifted to red clay and oil fields. We landed outside Amarillo, Texas, flat country, wind-cut and endless. At the center of it stood another fortress of concrete and wire, newer than Blackridge, but with the same federal markings. Facility 09, Hollow Creek Federal Penitentiary. The air smelled like dry metal. Heat shimmered off the yard like ghosts rising. Inside, everything looked too clean. Fresh paint, stainless steel doors. A hum too, even to be natural. The guards nodded to Vega, but avoided my eyes. They knew something. He led me to a restricted wing marked Archive B, past the scanners, down a hall lined with lead panels, into a chamber that felt too cold for Texas. In the center stood a glass cylinder sealed, full of amber light. Inside it hung an object I recognized immediately, a cracked LED screen with one glowing phrase frozen across it. "Red list, standby mode." I stepped closer. My reflection swam in the glass, pale and uncertain. Where did this come from? Vega folded his hands behind his back. Recovered from Blackridge before the collapse. It rebooted here on arrival. Said your name. He handed me a small envelope stamped with the FAD crest. Inside, a printed transcript of the final log the system produced. Only 3 lines. Cycle 01 terminated. Witness transfer authorized. New site Hollow Creek. I felt the chill crawl up my spine. "You mean me?" He didn't deny it. That night they gave me a cell in the officer's wing, luxury compared to Blackridge, but the silence still had weight. Through the vent came a faint vibration, low and steady, like a pulse in the foundation. At 0:33, I woke to find the light on my desk flickering red. The intercom clicked once. Then Jasper McCoy's voice, softer now, almost kind. "You broke one chain. Don't stop." I froze, staring at the vent. "Where are you?" Everywhere they buried the truth. Static followed, then silence. The next morning I confronted Vega in the mess hall. "What's under this place?" He looked up from his coffee, expression unreadable. "Gold once." Now, data. We built the prisons on old resource veins, mines, oil, uranium. Easier to hide energy experiments under security budgets. So all 17 are sitting on, what, geothermal reactors? He shook his head slowly. Not reactors. Mouths. That evening, he brought me to the lower levels. The corridors here were older than the rest, stone, not concrete, carved into the clay long before the facility was built. At the end of one passage, we reached a door identical to Blackridge's gas chamber seal. Thick steel, federal crest, warning lights dead. Vega swiped a card. The door unlocked with a sigh. Inside, a wide circular pit glowed with faint red light seeping through cracks in the rock. Hanging over, it was a single monitor, blank except for one blinking cursor. He gestured toward it. Go ahead. I typed my name. The system responded instantly. Ethan Calder verified. Execution cycle, suspended state. 44 remain. My stomach turned. The same number. Vega nodded. Each site carries its portion of the equation. 45 souls in total. You released one. 44 others are still bound to mines, dams, test sites, wherever they bled the land dry. I looked at him. You want me to free them? I want you to keep the country from collapsing under its own guilt, he said quietly. But yes, you're going to help us close the list. He pressed a badge into my hand, silver, with the letters 17 stamped across it. Welcome to the Red List Division. Weeks passed. We traveled across states, Arizona, Colorado, Mississippi, each location different, but the pattern the same. An old industrial scar, a forgotten prison, a red glow breathing under the floor. In every place, a variation of the list waited. Miners, soldiers, convicts, victims. Some names erased themselves as we arrived, as if the act of seeing them granted release. Others refused to fade, pulsing stubbornly in the dark. Sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I heard the 33-minute hum again. Not a curse, not a countdown, just the sound of history refusing to die quietly. At the 12th site, Nora joined the field unit as a civilian historian. Her first words when she saw me, "You look like you haven't slept since Nevada." "I haven't," I said. "Every time I dream, the mind's waiting." She handed me a flash drive. "Then you should see this." On it was satellite footage, thermal imaging from over a dozen facilities. Each one pulsed in sync, identical frequency, like a heartbeat stretched across the map. "Tell me that's a coincidence," she said. "It's not." Vega appeared in the doorway behind us. That's coordination. Someone or something is still running the system. 2 nights later, at the Texas command bunker, alarms shattered the quiet. Every screen flared crimson. The words burned across them all. Red list, global initiation phase. Technicians screamed, pulling plugs. Nothing stopped it. Vega shouted over the chaos. It's self-propagating. It's moving through the grid. The lights dimmed, then steadied. On the main monitor, a map appeared. Continental United States, 17 red dots glowing. One after another, they began to fade, until only one remained. Nevada. Blackridge. Nora whispered, but it collapsed. The comms crackled to life, flooded with static, and beneath it, Kayla McCoy's voice. 33 minutes for mercy. Starting now. The timer appeared on the screens. 33:00. Counting down. Vega looked at me. She's alive. Or it is. I didn't wait for orders. I grabbed my pack and the gavel half from my belt. Vega followed, shouting, "You can't stop a nationwide cycle." "Watch me," I said. We reached Nevada in 6 hours. The valley was gone, swallowed by a crater half a mile wide. At its center burned a column of red light stabbing into the clouds. Lightning circled it, silent, reversed, bolts climbing upward. Nora clutched the recorder. That's Kayla's frequency. It's broadcasting from below. We descended what was left of the old service road, the ground vibrating under every step. The heat was unbearable, but beneath it was something colder, like grief made physical. At the crater's lip, I heard the whisper again, clearer than ever. "Ethan, it's almost done." The voice was hers and Jasper's and something else entirely. In the center of the pit stood a figure made of red ash, flickering between human shapes. Kayla's outline 1 second, Jasper's the next. "They wanted justice," it said, voice layered and echoing. Now they get balance. The earth split open, revealing what lay beneath. The mine, the court, rebuilt and burning brighter than before. The benches were filled again. This time not just miners but soldiers, prisoners, civilians. Faces from every site we'd visited. Vega raised his weapon. We can't contain that. Nora grabbed his arm. Then witness it. I stepped forward, gavel in hand. Kayla, I said, if you can hear me, end it. The shape tilted its head. End? No. Rewrite. It reached for me. The gavel grew hot, glowing through my fingers. Symbols appeared along the handle, Calder script, McCoy script, merging. The voice whispered, judge and witness, same blood now. Light swallowed everything. For 33 minutes, the desert glowed red from orbit. When it cleared, the crater was gone. In its place lay flat, glassy earth, cool to the touch. No radiation, no heat signature, no bodies. Just silence. Fad sealed the area and called it an atmospheric anomaly. But I know what really happened. The system didn't die. It changed hands. In the weeks after, reports came in from across the country. The other facilities powered down one by one, leaving behind messages burned into their floors. Each said the same thing. Cycle complete. Mercy granted. And one more line beneath it. New custodian, called McCoy, hybrid signature confirmed. Vega asked what it meant. I told him I didn't know. Truth was I did. Sometimes when I touch metal, it hums back. Sometimes when I pass a mirror, I see her reflection standing beside mine, whispering in time with my heartbeat. And sometimes, every 33 days, the glass on my desk fogs, and words appear slowly, written from the inside. Next list, upload ready. Last night, I opened my laptop. A single file waited on the desktop, no sender, no timestamp. Its name, redlist_02 pending. When I clicked it, 29 names appeared. At the bottom, a new one blinked, freshly added. Agent Vega, 72 hours. And below it, a line that wasn't typed by me. Justice never dies. It just learns to breathe again. The screen went dark. Outside, thunder rolled across the desert, deep and rhythmic, like something underground waking up to start the next cycle. I poured a cup of coffee. It was still hot, still alive. And for a moment, I almost believed mercy was real.